Welcome to the NZ Travel Show, an interactive show where you can ask your NZ travel questions to the experts behind nzpocketguide.com, New Zealand's largest travel guide. The NZ Travel Show will start in exactly 2 minutes. Just the time for you to hit the like button, ring the notification bell, and subscribe if you have not done so yet. NZPocketGuide.com has over 3,000 articles covering all aspects of travelling in New Zealand, from a working holiday gap year to tips for a perfect family holiday. The site also features dozens of pre-made itineraries that you can use to plan your ideal trip in New Zealand. It's all available for free at nzpocketguide.com, so check it out. The NZ Travel Show is hosted by Robin, the Operations Manager of South Pacific Pocket Guide, the company behind nzpocketguide.com. The New Zealand Travel Show is also hosted by Laura, a journalist and editor-in-chief of South Pacific Pocket Guide and all its publications, including nzpocketguide.com. We're exactly 1 minute away from the NZ Travel Show. Get yourself comfortable and start asking your NZ travel questions in the chat. Robin and Laura will go over them when the show starts. In 30 seconds, our experts will be live from New Zealand to give you all the practical New Zealand travel tips you need, from the best transport options to the best accommodations and activities to choose for the perfect New Zealand holiday. Live from New Zealand, this is the NZ Travel Show with your travel experts, Robin and Laura.
That's right, everybody. We're back for another NZ Travel Show today with you. It is Sunday, the 19th of February. It is 8 a.m. right here in New Zealand, and we're here for an entire hour to answer all your questions about traveling in New Zealand. And we already have quite a fair amount of lovely people sending a lot of emojis right here, including a lovely emoji story just right next to Laura right here. I do really enjoy it.
It's a beautiful read, guys.
If
you haven't seen it already, just have a look at the live chat, and it's quite the. I mean, it's a very common story, but beautiful nonetheless.
there is some beauty to be found in like, the common and the mundane. You know, if you can make the mundane beautiful, this is when stories come alive, right? Okay, so we have Fabio over there from Vienna. We have Anthony Comstock all the way from Rodeo in California. He says Morena. Laura, what does Morena mean?
It means good morning in the Maori language.
And also we have Nathan Baith all the way from Exotic Topo. I hope that you stayed dry this week, Nathan. So, yes, a couple of news from New Zealand. Obviously, we had Cyclone Gabrielle. It made the headline, the news headline, pretty much in many places in the world, despite the fact that there was way worse, catastrophes around the world. But no, us getting our feet wet, apparently it was worth making it in the news. But
some people lost their homes, Robin.
Yeah, some people did lose their home. Yes, that's true. That is true. But if you compare to this earthquake with thousands of deaths and war and everything, it's always a bit hard to say
Don't worry, when there's bad things going wrong somewhere, there's something worse elsewhere.
Yeah. But yeah, today we have
happy times.
But today we have a fun theme. Anyway, we have Jason here that says Dobro večer. Dobro jutro, kako ho kome. I don't know what that means, but he says good evening, good morning. I like it.
Good morning.
And also we have Moose that is here. Hello
Moose
from the UK.
T. That's an awesome username.
You like that username?
Yeah.
Did they get an award today?
Sure, if we still give out our amazing...
We do. We obviously do.
Awards.
All right, present that to Moose T.
Okay, Moose T, you have been given the username of the episode.
Of the week.
Of the week. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I didn't know what the official title was. But...
Well, it's Laura giving a seal of approval than you do. So yeah, here you go. Look at that. Ta-da! Congratulations, Moose T.
So Fabio says it hit Hawke's Bay the hardest.
Yes, I
the
think
cyclone, yeah.
the price of fruit and vegetables is going to go quite high this coming season because in the Hawke's Bay we actually grow quite a lot of crops over
Fresh
there. So
fruits,
yeah, and a lot of them have been damaged. So yeah, so it's not
vineyards,
ideal. And we also have ideal says Kiara, Robin, Laura, and all the viewers. Okay, so it looks like the audio is working, everything is working, so we can get started with our theme of the week. But as usual, a quick reminder to everybody, you are more than welcome to ask your questions about traveling in New Zealand, even if it has nothing to do with the theme of this week at any point during this live show. The theme of the week just gives us something to kind of chit-chat about a little bit. And let's get started. Theme of the week. Okay, so this week we're going to be talking about something pretty awesome, and that's the working holiday visa scheme in New Zealand, or this gap year idea in New Zealand. So if you don't know what a working holiday is, it's a visa that allows people between 18 to 30 or 35 years old for selected countries, and we'll talk about that soon, to come to New Zealand and be able to work and travel in the country. So it's a temporary work visa that allows you to come and travel in New Zealand. You still have to have holiday as your main purpose of traveling to New Zealand. It's really not a path to immigration or any of those kind of things. It's just to come, take a gap year, gather life experiences. And also, if you're younger, being able to afford an extended trip to New Zealand. So we thought that during this episode, it would be a good idea to go over everything you need to know about traveling in New Zealand on a working holiday visa. So that's what we're going to be recapping today for you, just going through everything in broad stroke and pointing you in the right direction if you do need some more information. Strong hit, if you need some more information, there is a link right on the top of the description of this video that will send you to a complete guide which will have all the info you ever need for that. All right, so while you guys are coming up with questions, we're going to get started with a quick series of tips.
Yeah, so we're going to get started with 8 requirements that you need to meet in order to get a working holiday visa for New Zealand, because unfortunately it isn't open to absolutely everybody. There are a few requirements that you do need to meet. So Robin will start us off.
All right, so first up, in order to get a working holiday visa in New Zealand, you need to have a passport from one of the 45 different countries which are allowed to come to New Zealand on a working holiday visa. At time of recording, we have 45 countries, but this can change, so make sure to check on the New Zealand immigration website to see if your country is eligible for it. But right now, the countries that are eligible for working holiday visa are Argentina, Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Chile, China, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Hungary, Hong Kong, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Japan, Korea, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malaysia, Malta, Mexico, Netherlands, Norway, Peru, Philippines, Poland, Portugal, Singapore, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden, Taiwan, Thailand, Turkey, United Kingdom, USA, Uruguay, and Vietnam.
Wow, impressive list. Okay, so the next requirement is your age. So you need to be between 18 to 35 years old. So for most working holiday visas, it really depends on which country and what the conditions are for your country that you're the of your nationality. But for most countries, you have to be between 18 to 30 years old. And then for a select few countries, that is extended up to 35 years old. And those extended up to that 35 years old includes Argentina, Canada, Chile, Czech, Finland, Hungary, Slovakia, and Uruguay.
All right, so another condition that you need to meet when coming to New Zealand is that you need to still come in New Zealand primarily for a holiday. So again, as I mentioned early on in this episode, the working holiday visa is not intended to be a path to immigration into New Zealand, although some people have used it, in doing so. But most people should be coming in New Zealand on the gap year with just the purpose of wanting to explore New Zealand and just not having enough funds to be able to fund an extended trip in New Zealand and just work along the way. With that in mind, you have to remember that the type of jobs that you're going to be getting usually are seasonal jobs. There will be the fruit picking or the farming type of jobs.
Okay, next requirement is you gotta have money. So you need to have a minimum of about 4,200 New Zealand dollars, and that is in order to support yourself. And also you need to either have an onward travel ticket or funds to purchase one. So Go ahead, Robin. Sorry, I thought you were about to.
No worries.
move on.
All right, so the next couple of requirements are pretty short. So you need to meet some basic health and character requirements, which will be assessed through a questionnaire during the application of your visa.
So, sorry, what was that?
You also are not able to bring a child into New Zealand. That's the next one on the list. Along with your working holiday visa, you're more than welcome to bring a child in New Zealand if you're just traveling as a tourist, but not on a working holiday visa. You also need to have medical and travel insurance. That's a requirement for most of the working holiday visa, and we cover all of that in a separate video as well as on the website. So just make sure to check that out because there's a lot to this. And the last requirement, something that trips a lot of people, especially post-COVID, is that you cannot have been approved for a working holiday prior to your new application. So if you have applied and have been, not being able to take your working holiday or these kind of things, it's just too late and you can only apply once. So only apply when you're sure you can take your holiday. All right, so Fabio has a question for us.
He says, question of the day from me. Why has Germany nearly unlimited working holiday visas available, but Austria has only 100 each year?
So first, it's not unlimited, what Germany has. It is, so it's not nearly unlimited. It is unlimited. Yeah, they don't have a cap on their quota. However, yeah, Austria only has 100. I think it has to do with bilateral agreements, like depending on like how many young people from New Zealand with Australia, with Austria, so we take compared to what Germany will take. I think it has to do I think each of those scheme has been negotiated individually. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but that would be my guess, right?
Politics.
My guess would be politics more than anything. All right, Anthony says.
So Anthony says, so that means at 58 you couldn't do the working holiday visa. No, you couldn't,
sadly,
unfortunately.
no.
Yeah, there is that age limit. They only want the youngsters in.
yeah, because it really is tailored to trying to get more people to do seasonal job, right? It's basically in order to help New Zealand, work through its very seasonal industry, which we do a lot of farming, both cattle and those kind of things, as well as
fruit
picking and all this kind of thing,
yeah.
horticulture and everything. So it's really is for that purpose more than anything else. And so for that reason, they just want people which are fit and able-bodied in order to kind of fill in for those jobs.
To do the jobs that, I guess, Kiwis don't really want to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically what the scheme is, what this is for, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, while you guys keep going with some great questions, both of those questions were really good, Anthony and Fabio. We're going to go over when it is best to apply for a working holiday visa. So a lot of the working holiday visa have quotas, as we just mentioned with Laura. So one of the great things to do is to apply right when the quota opens, right? We just had an example right here with Fabio saying there's only 100 places every year for people from Austria, right? And so for that reason, the quotas get filled up really quickly. It's more of a first in, first served basis, not like who deserves it the most or anything. So you've got to apply really, really quickly. So in order to know when your quota opening dates are opening, there is a page on the Immigration New Zealand website, which is linked in the article in the description of this video. And then once you apply for your visa, it doesn't mean you have to fly to New Zealand as soon as possible. So there is a bit of a misconception right here, which I thought it'd be nice to clear up a little bit. So when you apply for your working holiday visa, let's say you apply for a 12 months working holiday visa, you get your application granted. At that point, you have 12 months to enter New Zealand. And then from the date you enter New Zealand, you have 12 months to experience New Zealand, to work and travel in the country. So applying for your working holiday visa can be done up to 11 months and 28 days before flying to New Zealand. So you don't have to just try to apply as soon as possible and then getting. It's a question that we get super often. So again, just to recap, let's say you apply for a 12-month working holiday visa. Once you get your visa approved, you've got 12 months to enter the country. Within those 12 months, at any point, you're going to enter the country. When you enter the country, right here, you have another 12 months to experience New Zealand. All right, so it's just something that we get a lot of questions about, so we thought we'd take extra time to clear up. What is Musti having to say?
Moose says, do you feel it is worth getting a 23-month visa for the UK and pay for the medical examination, or just get the 12-month and extend if that's possible? That is possible, but even if you extend, you have to pay for a medical examination in New Zealand, so you still have to go through that process.
So it would be easier to do the 23 months straight away.
Yeah, I mean, if you definitely know if you want to do the 23 months, it is probably a simpler process just to get that all done at the same time. However, because in New Zealand, if you are based in somewhere like Auckland, they're very used to doing the medical examinations specifically for immigration in New Zealand. It does turn out to be a little bit cheaper to get your medical examination in New Zealand. So if you're unsure whether you want to spend the 23 months, if you're like, okay, I'll just do the 12 months, see if I want to extend it, then that it's still a pretty effortless process to go through once you are in New Zealand. But again, it's easier to do it if you are in one of those larger cities as well, so you can get your medical examination specifically for what you need for immigration.
Yeah, so and so that's the and we'll talk about the application really soon, but for the countries which are able to get a 23 month, then they need to do a medical check and something a bit more extensive. This does not apply to most other countries, so just putting it out there in case you're watching and you're not from the UK, it's okay, or from Canada, which can do it as well, I think. All right, so Fabio says, picture yourself sitting in a meeting, Australian foreign minister and New Zealand one, and agreeing on 100 visa. It's kind of a joke. Yeah, it is a very small number. No, there is some countries which are less than that. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Estonia has only like 30 or something.
Yeah. So they are smaller numbers, just so you know, Fabio. So you're not the smallest numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, and Fabio says the Austrian is only for 6 months. Oh, that's a bit sad, isn't it? All right, so speaking of the working holiday visa, well, we know somebody on a working holiday visa right now. I decided not to keep it for the last. Yeah, I know, I was smart. And so there is a lovely French backpacker called Armand. He's on a gap year right now in New Zealand, and he's just awesome. He's giving us videos every single week of him enjoying New Zealand and showing us what a gap year in New Zealand is all about. So this time around, he's in Auckland. He's completing a week of work. He's dealing with Cyclone Gabrielle. No. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's dealing with Cyclone Gabrielle. That's where we're at. And so yeah, let's just watch what he's up to. It's about like less than 5 minutes, and we'll be back right after this with more questions and more things about the working holiday in New Zealand.
Kia ora guys, this is Arman reporting from my flat in Auckland CBD on the 19th week of my working holiday in New Zealand. So as I'm recording this video, Cyclone Gabrielle is headed towards us. I can definitely hear the wind knocking on the windows, and we expect heavy rainfall to start during the early hours of Monday. And I don't know if I will be able to go to work tomorrow, to be honest, because the trains will not be working according to AT Hop at least until mid-Tuesday. And the harbour bridge is closed also. It doesn't affect me since I live in the CBD and my workplace is in St. John's, but I know a bunch of colleagues who do live in the North Shore. So yeah, this is just very unfortunate that we have to deal with this weather and these phenomena during the summer, which is the time where when you were supposed to travel, and I'm just waiting for the nice opportunity to proceed with my Bay of Islands trip. I have booked it for next weekend. Hopefully the sunshine will be back, and I will be able to finally do that skydive. So for the past week, I went to the sensory gardens in the Auckland Domain and took some flower photos. Unfortunately, I clumsily formatted my SD card. That prompted me to buy a CF Express card from Auckland Camera Center to be able to basically back up the photos. So now I'm asking, basically I've set up the camera to save the raw files on the CF Express, obviously, and to save a JPEG copy on the SD card. That way I have two support materials, and if I have a, I don't know, like an SD card failure or anything, I won't lose all my photos. A couple of days ago I went to 13 Hill and took some nice landscape shots. I went there before sunset and waited all the way till after sunset to take photos and compare them. And one thing I really liked about this was that the walk to the hill, to the top of the hill, was really pleasant, and it wasn't crowded at all. I also went to the art gallery, the Auckland Art Gallery, for the third time, I believe, and as usual I stumbled upon interesting pieces of art, some of which I took photos of. And yeah, it was quite, I guess, peculiar things that you can see sometimes in those contemporary art venues. Finally, I did some street photography with my flatmate, who is also into photography, and he suggested that we go for a walk at night in the city, and I personally took some photos of the Harbour Bridge, but I hadn't brought my tripod with me, so I had to rely on a higher shutter speed and a lower exposure time, which is a challenge for those of you who are familiar with these photography things. Yeah, it was interesting though to practice taking a relatively stable photo, just handheld, like, and trying to get a decently exposed and sharp photo at the same time. I think that wraps it up for this week, folks. I hope the cyclone doesn't cause too much damage. Until next week, take care.
All right, so practicing a lot of night photography over there.
Yeah, and going to the amazing art gallery once
again. I like it that he disses the art gallery all the time, but he's still...
it's quite expensive to go if you're like... if you're visiting from overseas, but once you become like an Auckland resident, which I guess like he's done, he can get in for free. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's not my favorite art gallery, I have to admit.
What is your favorite Moose Tea saying?
Moose Tea says, thank you guys. Yeah, it's quite expensive to get in the UK, about £350. Do you know how much it is to get the examination in New Zealand? So I don't know exact figures for how much it is in New Zealand, because there's quite different competitive prices across various cities. So I really encourage you to sort of do your own research, think about which town or city you're going to be in when you're traveling, and what you're likely to, where you're likely to be in order to compare the prices there. But you do really need to bear in mind that if you do opt to extend your visa, you're going to have to actually pay an extra immigration fee in order to do the visa extension. So just bear in mind these extra costs as well. If you do the 23-month visa application, you only have to pay one visa fee, which is great, but it is but it then comes with that cost of getting the medical examination done in the UK. But then you need to compare that to the cost of paying that visa fee twice and then doing the New Zealand medication examination costs. So just bear in mind there is going to be an extra fee for immigration when you do get it done in New Zealand. And
nothing happened.
Weird things going on screen while I was explaining that. So
it was all good. The one thing I'm going to say though, Musti, is that if you're trying to, save like 50 quid here and there, right, and you're planning something which is 23 months worth of your life, that probably means that you haven't saved up enough. You definitely want to have saved up a significant amount of money in order to take your gap year in New Zealand and be able to have fun. And we'll talk about that around the end of this episode. We'll talk about how much money you need, in order to kind of really enjoy your what the whole cost of it basically, how much money you need to enjoy your time in New Zealand. But yeah, if you try to save a little bit of money here and there, it's probably not going to work, right? Realize that if you are doing this medical certificate in the UK, you are within a system that you know and understand and can work through very easily, rather than doing it in the UK, so in New Zealand, in a place that you don't know much about, you don't know where you're going to be, you're going to need to book that meetings and all these kind of things, and then do extra paperwork in the middle of your gap year when you either traveling or trying to work and do this and do that. I just feel like you're adding extra constraints and extra hurdle in the middle of your trip, kind of on purpose, right? It's kind of like right in the middle of the trip, I'm going to have the stress of that visa application, the extra cost of that visa application, the logistic of that visa application. Why do that? If you know you want to be here for 23 months, just do it already before you come. If you're unsure, that's the only reason not to. If you're really unsure, you're like, I don't think I'm going to like New Zealand, I don't want to stay there that long. If you're not sure, you leave the door open and then you're like, oh, good surprise, I enjoy New Zealand, therefore I want to stay. Then at that point, you only take 12 months. But if you guarantee yourself, if you know within yourself you want to stay 6 months, just do it straight away. Like, get everything out of it, rip that band-aid. That's my whole spirit right here for you.
Nice advice, Robin.
Okay, so let's talk about applying for the working holiday visa now. In order to apply for the working holiday visa in New Zealand, it is relatively easy. You just need to have a computer, an internet connection, Visa or MasterCard. It doesn't even have to be yours. It can be the one from your parents. It's absolutely fine. You need to have your passport. You need to have another piece of ID. If you are applying for 23 months, you need that medical and x-ray certificate for you, Musti. And obviously, you need to register on the Immigration New Zealand website. So that's kind of like what's going to happen. Now, when you have done all that and you register on the Immigration New Zealand website, then at that point you can apply for your working holiday visa. We have a complete walkthrough with screenshot for you on the website on NZ Pocket Guide. Again, there is a link in the description of this video. But in short, the application is going to take you about 45 minutes from at least what we have experienced ourselves. And it's split in 4 different categories. First up, you have to put all your personal information, all your details, name, identifications, blah, 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 a lot of things. And note that some information like your occupation are actually optional, so you don't have to fill in all the blanks if you don't want to. Then you have to talk a little bit about your health. You obviously have to be in good health when coming to New Zealand on the working holiday visa. And so by answering those questions, it will determine, basically the system will tell you if there is some extra information you need to submit or not. Then there is a bit of tick boxes about your character, asking you if you plan on terrorizing people and things like that. You need to check yes or no on each of those boxes. And then there is some information that you need to give about your working holiday experience. So you planned working holiday visa, when you're thinking you're going to come to New Zealand, how long you think you're going to be staying, and all these kind of things. And remember that those are kind of what you're planning on doing. It doesn't have to be 100% right. So let's say you said, oh, I'm going to come to New Zealand on 19th of February, but then look, there's this live show to watch. You were busy, you couldn't, and you arrive on the 21st. It's absolutely fine. It is just mostly for survey purposes. All right. So, so that is how the application for the working holiday visa works. Lawrence is here and she says, Kia ora, everyone. How are you doing, Lawrence? Welcome aboard. And Musti, what is Musti saying?
Says, that's all really helpful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. We're here to help. Okay, so once you've done your application for your working holiday visa, you want to check if your working holiday visa has been approved. Laura, how do you do that?
It's pretty easy. You just wait for the email to come through from Immigration New Zealand, and you should receive an email within 54 days.
Way earlier than that, right?
Usually it's much earlier, but officially on the Immigration New Zealand website, they sometimes put 54 days, timeline, but it is usually even within a week, sometimes 10 days. That sort of time frame is what we have experienced ourselves, as well as what people have after COVID have reported to us as well, how long it takes. So yeah, it's just as simple as receiving an email, and it's as simple as that. However, you can go onto the Immigration New Zealand website, you log in with your details that you used in order to make the application in the first place, and you can see how the status of your application is.
And there's no reason to log into your immigration portal until you got the email, by the way. Just pointing it out. Yeah. There's a lot of people that check every day and everything. There's really no reason to do that.
Don't do that to yourself. Don't make yourself go through the stress of that every day.
I know. Why do that? Why do that? Okay. So, that's something that we receive questions about all the time as well is, well, I got an email that says I have a working holiday visa, but like, what is it? Where do I print it? What is it? What does it look like, basically? So what I thought we'd do is we'll literally just remove Laura. And yeah, we show you what the working holiday visa actually look like. So this is what the working holiday visa in New Zealand looks like. It's a piece of paper that you will be able to find. I saw your hand. Yeah. It's a piece of paper that you can print if you want, but it's mostly digital, so you don't even have to print it if you don't want to. But the most important part is basically the part which are currently blacked out on that piece of paper right here because of privacy reasons, obviously. And so yeah, you obviously have your name and your address. The client number and the application number are the next two things which are blacked out, and those two things are the things which are really important. Then there is your name, and the letter is pretty much the same for everybody. Another thing to keep in mind is on the second paragraph, the paragraph that starts with the word details. I don't think I can point. Can I point? Okay, if I manage that correctly, this paragraph right here, this paragraph right there, it actually tells you when is your enter, like what date you can enter into New Zealand up until, sorry. So for example, this person right here on this this visa, which shall remain nameless, had the right to enter New Zealand all the way until the 22nd of April 2023. So before that, so 21st of April 2023, she or he was still good to enter the country. And then it tells you a little bit lower, you know, this is a UK scheme, so it tells you about the 12 months and then 11 months and etc. So yeah, so that's basically what a working holiday visa actually looks like. So yes, for those of you which are stressed and are not printing something, so I don't not sure what to print, it looks like this.
Yeah, and the thing to bear in mind is that it is an electronic
Yes.
visa, so it's automatically applied to your passport. So when you enter New Zealand using, even if you just use one of the smart gates where it scans your passport, it gets the details, it knows that you have a working holiday visa from that. So it's a pretty seamless process upon entering New Zealand, which we will also get into talking about what the airport process is in just a moment.
Yeah. Actually, another thing I'm going to point out, if you look, and there is different sections, there is the condition of your visa, and there is also your employment conditions in New Zealand. So some countries have different conditions, so just do make sure to read it. It's only one page. You can read. You're coming to New Zealand for a life-changing experience. You can read one piece of paper. So yeah, just read it. Sound like an old dad right here, but come on, people, do your homework. All right. So let's talk about arriving in New Zealand. So when you arrive in New Zealand, you're going to be landing at the airport, like like everybody, and then you are going to pass through passport control, customs, biosecurities, and immigration. Now in immigration, there is three things that may be asked to you, as proof as evidence for your working holiday visa. And the beautiful Laura is going to go through them for you.
So just to clarify that you may or may not be asked these questions, right? It's just good to make sure that you are prepared in case you are asked about this by an immigration officer. So the things that they might ask you relating to your working holiday visa is whether you have evidence of sufficient funds. So earlier in the video, I talked about how you need to have at least 4,200 New Zealand dollars to show that you can support yourself or when you first arrive in New Zealand. So having either like a printed bank statement, that sort of thing is sufficient enough to prove that you have funds for your stay. You also need to have evidence of an outward travel ticket or sufficient funds to purchase one. So either have your return ticket out of New Zealand or prove on your bank statement that you have, say, an extra 1,000 New Zealand dollars in order for you to leave the country. So that's another piece of evidence that you may need to show at immigration. And then finally, the condition of a working holiday visa is that you do need to have travel insurance. So having evidence or a printed copy of your policy, that sort of thing, is sufficient enough to show that you do have travel insurance.
Boom, easy as. So yeah, so feel free to ask us your questions, guys. By the way, we're here to answer all your questions about traveling in New Zealand. Otherwise, we continue talking about that working holiday. We can talk about it for like hours, just putting it out. All right, so let's talk about your first week in New Zealand. So, okay, you arrive at the airport, you've done all the paperwork, as Laura said. I mean, you showed all the paperwork, as Laura said. Honestly, you probably won't need to show all that paperwork. I feel like 1% of people have been asked all this paperwork.
But you know, the one time you are like, oh, you know what, I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to print all that extra stuff for New Zealand. That'll be the time that you get asked, and then you'll be probably, you know, wetting yourself.
Okay, we're removing Laura from the screen right here. Okay, so the first week in New Zealand. So you arrived in New Zealand, and yeah, you passed through the airport without wetting yourself, Laura. Nonsense. Okay, you have your first week in New Zealand. Awesome. We have a full video on the channel about what you should be doing in your first week. Literally, day by day, here's what you should be doing on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. But in short, a few things that you're going to need to be done will be getting over your jet lag, of course, getting some groceries for your first week. We are assuming that you're going to be staying in hostels or in some place like that, which are going to be a little cheaper, but you can also make your food there. It's cool. Setting up your phone, opening a bank account, getting an IRD number, and even a Kiwi access card, which will be quite handy if you don't have a New Zealand driver license, and starting to plan your transport around New Zealand. The first thing that I want to point out is during your first week in New Zealand, you want to be planning on getting out of Auckland. You do all your paperwork in Auckland and get out of Auckland. This will actually enhance your experience in New Zealand. Auckland is a really large city with very high cost of living, and wages are relatively low. Therefore, you won't be able to have the right kind of balance of income and experiences and all that you can have in many other places in New Zealand. We hear times and times and times again that people are coming to New Zealand and they regret spending too much time in Auckland and say, I wish I traveled earlier. I wish I spent more time outside of Auckland. So just please learn from this experience that we get all the time. Please learn from it and get out of Auckland.
But I mean, Armin's doing a great job of staying in Auckland.
No, Armin stayed 3 weeks in Auckland. He's getting in and out all the time, and he's
Yeah,
literally
true.
leaving his job next week. So he's literally already regretting staying so long in Auckland.
True.
He's quitting after how long has he been in his job? 3 weeks. He's already quitting. So here you go.
Yeah. So Moose T says, how much is the working holiday visa? So it really depends what country you're from. There's different fees for different countries, and the costs range from 35 New Zealand dollars to a whopping 455 New Zealand dollars. So it depends which country you come from. You can easily find it on the Immigration New Zealand website. If you simply just Google search Immigration New Zealand Fee Finder, there's a page where you select the working holiday scheme for which country you come from. Yeah,
it's really handy.
And that tells you how much your working holiday visa will be. And we do have links to that on the page.
In the link in the description.
In the link in the description.
So what I've done is that in the link of the description, I link to one page, which is on NZ Pocket Guide, which has everything we're talking about right now. And so you got the links to all the places we're talking about. So yeah, just to make your life even easier, because we're that kind of good people.
Yeah.
Fabio says, we've been asked for all the papers on arrival. Even biosecurity dogs sniffed all of our stuff.
Wow. See, it does happen to people.
And he said that was 345 New Zealand dollars for Mostria at the time we got one. That was the same price that I paid. No, I paid $295 back in the days, in very, very old days. But we're talking more than a decade ago, so yeah.
I paid, I think it was 250 New Zealand dollars. That was a few years ago as well, so quite a few years ago, people.
Thank you for reminding us how old we are, guys. I'm loving it right here. What about we stop the questions about back in the day? No, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
I hate that feeling. All right, cool. All right, so one of the really important part of your gap year in New Zealand, obviously, is going to be budgeting, or planning your gap year in New Zealand is going to be budgeting. So a question that we receive really often, Laura, is...
How much savings are recommended for a New Zealand working holiday?
We do get that question super often. So what we decided to do is literally going over all the different type of expenses that's going to incur before you arrive, when you arrive, and everything. And then at the end, we'll go over what we think you should save for a working holiday visa. So let's begin with the expenses that you may have before you arrive in New Zealand. And let's begin with, what we're genuinely just talking about.
Yeah.
And it's the application fee for your working holiday visa. So let's do an average of 245 New Zealand dollars. That will be what the average for most people, are getting a working holiday visa in New Zealand at the moment. But yeah, so do know that, there is a wide range of costs for getting your visa for sure. Fabio is pitching in same answer to how much you should save as much as possible. Yes, that is true. Like, do not plan on saving when you're here in New Zealand. Plan to barely cover your expenses and save before.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
When you work in New Zealand, it's more like you are just working to just survive, to get by, but you're not going to leave New Zealand a millionaire. That's for sure.
Okay, the next expense that you may have is going to be your flight ticket. Our strong recommendation is to have your, obviously, inward and outward tickets paid or saved for on top of any other fees that we're going to be talking about. So you need to have saved for the fee to apply for your visa and your return ticket for sure. Then you obviously will have to have a travel insurance. That was what we were talking about. Travel insurance in New Zealand is a requirement for your working holiday visa. So make sure that you do have that covered and paid for the entirety of your trip. Don't think, oh yeah, I'll pay it monthly or anything. Don't do that. Just do the entirety of your planned trip in order to help you save a lot of money and genuinely actually save a lot of money compared to a lot of the international stuff. We've done some digging, we compared some. There is an article on NZ Pocket Guide. You can find some links on the website and in the description below, and that will help you find a local company as well that's going to give you more support. So have that paid. So again, the visa fees, your return flight, your travel insurance. Now, if you plan on using a working holiday program, you want to have that saved as well and ready to go. It's not really a necessity to use a working holiday program, but it can be helpful for those which are extra stressed. And lastly, you also want to have saved up and purchased all the gears you need for your working holiday visa. These very expensive hiking boots that is very much needed in New Zealand. And you'll get your money back 10 times on your hiking boots because it's going to save you so much money on plenty of activities. Your backpack, your travel towels, what else is like an essential that you need to have?
If you need a fresh pair of swimwear, fresh pair of togs, as they say in New Zealand. It depends on what you already have, but there's always these odd little things that you need for traveling. Like Robin says, backpack, travel towel, perhaps. Just all these niggly little things.
Indeed. Now, Fabio, I'm going to ignore your last comment. Okay, so that is the thing that you need to kind of have sorted out before, or like paid for, basically, before you even just start leaving your home country, right? Then, there is this whole thing about sufficient funds, right? And I just want to address that right out of the gate. The New Zealand government requires you to have 4,200 New Zealand dollars, as a proof of funds, to have sufficient funds to support yourself and your trip in New Zealand, blah, 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 blah. It's like minimum wage. It's absolutely not enough. It's like if somebody says, I'm going to pay you minimum wage, that's plenty enough to actually be able to establish a brand new life in a different country, have some once-in-a-lifetime experience when exploring a brand new country, and actually have the time of your life and go out and make new friends because you have to establish a brand new social life as well. Hell no, you cannot do that on minimum wage. That's an absolute insanity. So 4,200 New Zealand dollars is absolutely not enough. And if you think that you can barely make it to that amount, take another year back home and save some more, right? There is no way this is enough. And again, the 4,200 New Zealand dollars does not include any of the other items I mentioned, right? So the absolute minimum that we used to say pre-COVID, and I'm going to put that with a caveat because we have changed it. The absolute minimum that we used to say before COVID was to have an absolute minimum of 5,500 New Zealand dollars. We've done some calculation and looked at inflation because the New Zealand cost of living went so up, both for rent, both for food,
cost of fuel, and
activity,
transport.
fuel, transport, all that is like way up. So we're now saying 6,300 New Zealand dollars. That's what we think is the absolute minimum for you to be able to come to New Zealand. Even if you decide, I'm going to come to New Zealand, I'm going to do everything Robin and Laura are telling me not to do. I'm going to just stay in Auckland. I'm not going to incur any expenses, and I'm going to move into a flat. I'm going to work. Even if you want to do that, you've got to be able to cover the first few weeks of rent, the bond, all these kind of things, right? Just moving into a flat can be up to 2,000 New Zealand dollars alone. And you haven't even started to sort out your transportation to go to work and to do all these kind of things. So just and again, some of the money you're going to get back, some of it is a bond, obviously.
Yeah,
Some of
but
it
you
are
need to
early
have
week of rent.
you
You
need
need
to
to
have
have the
those
money
funds
available.
available,
Exactly, yeah. And so, even just going out and everything, you're going to go to a bar and the pint of beer is going to be $9, You're not going to have only one. And, it does cost a lot of money. So please don't come to New Zealand with the bare minimum hoping you can have the gap year of your life. It just won't work. I know I sound like a broken record right here, but man, I really, really, really need to hammer that down because so many people try to come with so little amount of money and don't have that experience that they were seeking, and it's just a little bit sad to hear. All right, so cool. So some countries have different requirements. Most of them are 4,200 New Zealand dollars, but make sure that you check what is the minimum required that you need to have. Some countries are lower, some countries are higher. Thailand is $7,000 for some reason, and Malaysia is 2,250.
I was thinking perhaps that was because of maybe it's only for a 6-month stay, but I don't know. It doesn't make much sense. But there are different amount of funds for different countries. So maybe they think that people from Malaysia and Singapore won't spend as much money as people from I don't know. Maybe they just have some predetermined thoughts on how much people spend.
And keep in mind that if you're coming from countries like the UK, where you can get a 23-month visa, you need to add more money. So the 4,200 is just for a 12-month visa. It's usually about 350 New Zealand dollars minimum per month. So if you're taking a 23 months, you need to have saved up more. And again, you should have saved up more. Okay. So we have talked about our recommendation. The next thing we want to do is talking about budget. What are people talking about right now? What I just
of course, there's a lot of hiking boots talk here. Fabio is saying you need to have at least category B shoes. Christina Horden is here, one of our lovely patrons.
Hey, Christina, how are you doing?
Saying hello all. Sorry we are late, and she also agrees that hiking boots are essential. Yes. And Fabio says hiking boots are love. Hiking boots are life. Good contribution. Yeah. And then Anthony is here saying stay safe, but I'm here until the end. A nice 15 minutes early-ish. So glad to see you are on the ball today, Anthony. Hiking boots are certainly essential. And there might be other things as well that you might want to buy before coming to New Zealand. Like if you don't have any, say, a rain jacket, that sort of thing. Like we
a good one, not those little tiny little ponchos which are horrible.
A good rain jacket, things that, like, if you are planning on doing a lot of outdoor activities, which really in New Zealand you should, you might want, like hiking pants, warm layers, like, sort of like underlayers and things like that. So just like if you need some good outdoor gear, and typically that is cheaper to get overseas than once you arrive in New Zealand.
Again, in New Zealand, we've got to import everything, right? We're a small island nation, right? Despite all the grandstanding we like to do on the world stage, we are a small island nation and we need to import everything, and therefore that incurs an extra cost for pretty much everything we're getting.
Yeah. So you can have a look at our packing lists that we have on nzpocketguide.com. There's loads of advice there, and that gives you an idea of the stuff that you should have prepared before coming to New Zealand.
Christina says it's so true, a good rain jacket. She also says that she's doing well. She's been busy and had company over last weekend for board games.
Ooh, nice.
How are we both doing? We're doing really well. We have company tomorrow for board games. So here you go.
Yeah. We lead very similar lives, you and I, Christina. You're not part of this.
What? You're horrible. Okay, so let's talk quickly about general costs, things that costs that will happen during your gap year in New Zealand, just so you have an understanding about what's the current cost in New Zealand. And we're going to get started with transportation. So if you want to take a bus, like what Armand is doing, is traveling with a company called Kiwi Experience, which kind of like hop on, hop off around the country. So a yearly pass for that would be between 1,000 and 2,000 New Zealand dollars. If you want to take the national coach bus, what would that cost?
For about a 4-hour trip, that could be anywhere between 30 to 80 New Zealand dollars.
If you would like to buy a used car, something which is about 15 years old or older, that will cost you between 2,000 to 5,000, sometimes 6,000 New Zealand dollars. The price have been going up quite a lot lately.
To hire a car for the day, that costs between 30 to 150 New Zealand dollars. Obviously, that depends on the season, what type of car you're getting, but quite a large difference on the cost of getting a car rental per day.
Now, if you decide to buy yourself an actual camper van, you want to buy a camper van for 2 people, something relatively old, same thing, about 15 years or older, it would be between $4,000 and $15,000, depending on the how high end you want to go. I mean, some of them are $150,000. I've seen some epic RVs. But,
Yeah.
But we'll
Depends
talk
how
about
luxurious.
backpacker kind of stuff. Yeah, we
Yeah.
talk about working holiday right here.
Yeah.
What about hiring a 2-person camper van?
For a 2-person camper van for hiring, that can be anywhere between 60 New Zealand dollars, that's on the real cheap winter side scale, to
And the tiny little thing with just a mattress at the back and not much else,
small
right?
camper van.
Not even self-contained.
Yeah, so the cheapest one you could get would be around 60 New Zealand dollars, and that goes all the way up to still talking about a small camper van, but 260 New Zealand dollars per day for a small camper van, probably in around the summer, spring, autumn time.
For petrol at the moment it's about $2.50 per liter. So here you go. That's about the current price. Domestic flight.
Domestic flights, one way, can be anywhere between 50 to 240 New
I
Zealand
don't
dollars.
think they do the $50 anymore.
Maybe they don't.
I think they stopped
yeah.
doing it literally
After
when the borders
COVID,
reopened. Yeah, when the border reopened. So we need to update
More,
this
more
one.
like 240 New Zealand dollars. Yeah, not cheap to fly around New Zealand.
And if you want to take the train around New Zealand, there's not that many train routes, but there's some pretty epic and very scenic ones. That would be between 150 and 300 New Zealand dollars. What is Fabio having to say?
Fabio says, I'd recommend buying all the outdoor stuff, contact lens fluid if you have stable lenses. NZ ones is not as good as the European ones. Okay, nice extra tips from Fabio. And he also says you have to get the self-contained one. So he's talking about the camper vans. Councils around the country want to get rid of non-self-contained parking spaces. Yeah. So
and then he's pitching in for the flight and say that the $50 flights are still available with Jetstar. Oh, interesting. What they used to do, they used to actually have pretty much a lot of flights at like $49, you know, especially between Auckland and Queenstown, those kind of things. They used to have a lot of them. I think they even have they either have reduced it so much that it's very, very hard to get. You know, it's one plane, like one seat at the wrong time of the week, one person, one thing. You know, it's not something which is common anymore. That's what I wanted to kind of express when I say I don't think they're doing it anymore. Because yes, you can always advertise the price of very, very cheap, but if it's one time a year, you know, it's not really something that you can plan on when budgeting for your trip in New Zealand. Can you go? All right, there is something happening over there. I am going to be just myself then, and I'll talk about the cost of accommodation for a gap year. So for a gap year, we're expecting you to either stay in a hostel, backpacker accommodation, or staying in campsite. That's kind of like the two options that we will suggest, with our favorite being hostels. We love the fact that you have access to the full facilities as well as being able to make so many friends. Night in hostels can range between $27 and $35 to stay in a dorm. That would be a bed for you for a night, but it can go up to about $75 if you want to have a room to yourself. When it comes down to campsites, there are some department conservation or dock campsites which are available, and some of them are free and some of them are up to $20 per person per night. That would be kind of like what you can expect for that. Moose T is backtracking and talking about the talking about transport, and so is Fabio. So Fabio says that there was 7 seats for the early flight with Jetstar. Okay, 7 seats at $50 for Jetstar, and that was from where to where? I'd like to know that. And Musti says, would you recommend buying a car? Laura, would you recommend buying a car? Welcome back, by the way.
Yeah.
People haven't even seen you be gone.
Yeah. I mean, it really depends on what you want from your trip, right? First of all, I'd only recommend buying a car if you are staying in New Zealand for the whole working holiday, for over 3 months at least. It's cheaper to buy a car rather than renting a car. However, it depends if you just come here by yourself, you might find that having a car and driving around can be a bit lonely. If you want to spend more time with other people, perhaps getting a bus ticket on a hop-on, hop-off bus or a bus tour, that sort of thing might be more just might be a better idea for you. However, if you prefer to be more independent and you like to go to all those hidden gems and work out your own itinerary around New Zealand and just be more in charge of your own trip. And that means also taking on all the responsibility of driving and
I'm just going to add a couple of things. I know people from the UK, they expect to buy a car for $5,000 and then sell it back for $5,000 and be like, transport cost me nothing. That probably won't be the case, right? Cars get lowered valued all the time. So you probably will lose, no matter what kind of car you're getting, you're going to lose at least $1,000 on the price of the car. You got to know that. You also need to actually have the right amount of time to buy the car and then resell it. That will cost you a good 2 weeks of your trip in New Zealand, stuck in Auckland trying to do all that paperwork and sending it back. You also have to pay for fees such as the warrant of fitness. When buying an old car, there's always going to be something that goes wrong, especially if you're planning on driving thousands of kilometers, in a foreign country. There is going to be some stuff that goes wrong, so be prepared that you also have those mechanical costs as well. So buying a car is not like a breaking even stuff at all.
Yeah.
And also, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think also buying your own car usually ends up being more expensive than if you were to go onto a hop-on
for
bus.
sure, yes, it
or
is.
doing the intercity bus. Like if you really are on a budget as well, like doing some sort of bus option would make more sense than buying your own car.
Because picture yourself driving something like which is 20 years old, which is really not uncommon for backpackers, right? They usually are gas guzzlers, right? And so at $2.50 a liter at the moment, you kind of just even petrol wise, you're going to be better to travel by bus. So just consider all those options right here. It is not the budget option. It's the freedom option for sure. You get to go wherever you want at whatever time you want, for sure. But it's not the budget option. Don't buy a car telling yourself it is the cheapest way to go.
Yeah, we do have comparisons on nzpocketguide.com if you want to search. Just look in our transport section that we have under the travel tips category, and we do sort of weigh up the pros and cons of each transport method of getting around New Zealand. So that should help you also make the right decision for yourself, because there is no better way of traveling around New Zealand. It really just depends on, what sort of experience you want for yourself.
All right, so Fabio, that came on a working holiday visa many moons ago when he was young as well. You see, I'm not the only one being old. He said, depending on the length of the stay, if you are there for at least 2 months, a car will be a good option. Keep in mind that you may have to get the wharf and repair work if something happens. We lost about 200 New Zealand dollars on the car during our 6 months, Robin, but repair and wharf costed us about $1,000. So here you go. He lost about $1,200 on the car.
Compared to when you first bought it.
Yeah. No, we including the repairs and everything within just 6 months, which I'm not surprised. And on top of that, that doesn't include the gas, obviously. But there is always cost in transport anyway. Like you got to keep that in mind. Adil says, is there a website we can go if we require more information about the topic than what is being discussed today? Please leave a link in the comment section. There is a link in the description of the video. Yes, there is literally a link just right in the description of that video with that send you to the right page. Hopefully the right page.
But anyway, it's nzpocketguide.com if you want to go check out that website. It's pretty good. All this information is for free for you guys.
All right, so all the typical costs in New Zealand, you get the cost of food and drinks. We do have about 3 or 4 different videos about that, so we're not going to cover that today. But we can talk about the different activities that are available in New Zealand. So if you want to do the skydive, that would be between $350 to $450-ish.
Yeah, for bungee jumping, that would be between 150 to 290 New Zealand dollars.
If you wanted to do whitewater rafting, that'd be between 120 to 170 New Zealand dollars.
For jet boating, that could be between 80 New Zealand dollars to about 150 New Zealand dollars.
If you want to swim with dolphin, it would be around 150, sometimes a little bit more than that.
For whale watching, that's between 120 to 150 New Zealand dollars.
If you want to do a kayaking tour in New Zealand, that's going to be something around the $150 mark.
For glacier hiking, so doing a heli hiking on a glacier, that's between 390 to about 500 New Zealand dollars.
Yeah, it's definitely not 390. Like it went up for sure.
Yeah.
Milford cruise will be between $75 and $100.
For doing one of the geothermal parks in Rotorua, that's anywhere between 30 New Zealand dollars to 100 New Zealand dollars.
If you want to do horse trekking, there are some really cheap ones. There are some which are about like $60, but there are some other more expensive, about $150.
For canyoning, so epic sort of, scrambling through a
You love
river
the word
somewhere.
scrambling. I love it.
Doing abseiling and all that sort of thing. That costs anywhere between 150 to 300 New Zealand dollars.
You're obviously going to want to go to Hobbiton, so plan $100 for that.
For glowworm caving, that's anywhere between 125 to 280 New Zealand dollars.
And the great walks are usually free to walk, but you've got to pay for the hut at night, right? And so that is, especially for foreigner, relatively expensive. Let's say like Milford Track and everything like that, it's more than $100 a night. So keep that in mind. But as said, in New Zealand, there is plenty of free activities. So let's cheer you up. Moving on away from all those expensive costs. Hiking is free. Lord of the Rings filming location, a lot of them are free. Natural hot springs, there's plenty of them which are free. Volcanoes, beaches, waterfall, and stargazing. All of that is usually free. All right. So that wraps up a little bit like the cost that you will incur when trying to experience and make the most of New Zealand for sure. We're going to slowly wrap up this live session. Fabio is continuing with listing all the different costs that he had with his car, battery, windshield, tires, those kind of things. And the MTA, is it MTA? Yeah,
that's for your pre-car inspection.
Not that. The red stuff with the wings that you put on your self-contained camper van, so you can go to Motor Association, whatever.
Oh yeah.
What's the name of that?
NZMCA.
There you go, Motor and Camper Van Association. That's what it is. So yeah, this one, and then it said. And the one thing I cannot remember that cost us about 250 New Zealand dollars. Something you can't remember. Welcome to the How Mechanics Make Money.
Yeah. So remember, if you buy a car, there'll be something that you can't remember that you've spent $250 on. That just happens, you know.
And Malcolm is saying, "Hi, I hope you are all safe. We are with all this what's going on in New Zealand. I am sure the Northern End will come back stronger." Indeed, I agree. Thank you for the cheering up, Malcolm.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Nice.
Adil is asking, what's the theme for next week? Well, the theme for next week has been asked by one of our lovely Patreon subscriber, and Mike asked us to go over the weather in March. So we're doing it 1 week earlier, and we're doing the weather in March next week. That's right. What to expect when traveling in New Zealand in March.
Awesome.
That's a good way to wrap it up. I like it, Adil. Thank you very much for reminding me to ask you guys that. All right, we have another hour of this show for our lovely Patreon subscriber coming right up. So if you feel like joining us on Patreon, you get our help in planning your trip to New Zealand. Should it be on a gap year or not? It starts at only $5 New Zealand dollars a
month.
A month, yes. So it's dead cheap, and you have access to a secret Facebook group when you can ask us questions all the time, get plenty of support, extra live sessions where we can be much more candid because they're not public. So yeah, consider joining us. For example, Musti, that may be a great asset for your trip to New Zealand. So consider that. In the meantime, we see you all next week. Bye-bye.
See you next week.